Mr. Greg Douglas, how you doing, my brother?
I am doing good. I'm sitting on a hazy afternoon in my man cave at Lake Hodges, California.
My next question, Lake Hodges is a bass fishing mecca. I've been there, we've been hooked up, we've broken lines there.
You and a lot of other people. Laurel and Hardy used to come here. The Marx Brothers came
Well,
here.
Greg Douglas, thank you so much for joining me today. Just wanted to thank you so much for your music, your artistry, your great guitar playing. Came into the Steve Miller Band in 1981 as a writer and helping the Abracadabra album. I knew of you because Gary Malaber, of course, who introduced me to Steve, would always talk about Greg Douglas this and Greg Douglas that. I go like, wow, okay, let's check this cat out. And then
Wow.
and then that's when I eventually joined the band in '82 to go on tour. That's when we started putting some of these songs into the set. And that's when I had to study, one of which we were going to work on today. I just was so blown away by your playing. And then the song Maelstrom, with the 12 string. Oh my God. I mean, I've had to try to learn that several times. And every time I learn it and I try to play it for Steve, I'll play about two measures and they go like, stop. I go, nope, you don't
I,
have.
I can hear his voice, yes.
He goes, don't play it. Don't even try. I understand you were born in Oakland.
I was born in Oakland. My dad was with the Navy. He was working for Upjohn Pharmaceuticals. We moved to Walnut Creek when I was about 3 years old, and that's where I stayed throughout high school. I was a nerd before it was cool to be a nerd. Back then, you just got the crap beaten out of you. I was talking with Bobby Winkleman. He said, "Do you realize we both got beat up by the same guys in high school?" So I picked up the guitar, because I wanted to find a way to meet women. There's no great artistic thing there. So, okay, we're on the same page there. And I had a terrible teacher. He wanted me to be the next Wes Montgomery, and I wanted to be the next George Harrison. So, but he recognized that I had some talent, but he just pushed this real esoteric jazz stuff on me, which 30 years later I found and learned. And I realized that he really was a good teacher. But once I got the guitar, it never left my hands. I was in a whole series of bands throughout high school. The Virtues was a local band that did very, very well. One day we started smoking pot and we were sitting, well, you have to start sometime. So we were sitting in the backyard. We said, well, we need to rename the band. We can't wear matching suits anymore. It's unhip. So, and we looked around and said, let's call it Country Weather. And we had this manager that was just a complete lunatic, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. He got us gigs that we had no right to have, opening for everybody, man. We opening for 10 years after Jeff Beck, Sly and the Family Stone. I had to go on after Jeff Beck. I had to walk on stage and,
Well, I remember Country Weather being on a lot of posters when I grew up in
it was.
So you were playing Fillmore and Winterland and all those places, man.
Right.
I was a little kid just hailing you guys,
Oh, it was so great, Kenny. I mean, you just can't believe it. Hanging out backstage with Keith Moon and I remember we went and saw Led Zeppelin, and we went in because we were managed by Bill Graham. He was our booking agent. The afternoon before Led Zeppelin was going to go on stage at the Fillmore, and I met John Bonham. And he was terrified. He was absolutely crapping his pants back there. He said, we've been able to fool people all over the US, but this is San Francisco. This is an entirely different thing. And I said, John, they've been playing your album incessantly all week on the local hip FM station. He said, really? Really? I said, yeah. They got up, they killed. He said, come back Sunday night and let's have a chat. I came back Sunday night. There was a huge British roadie standing there with his arms crossed. Says, nobody talks to Led Zeppelin. I don't want to go into too many war stories. It was a very exciting time.
Peter Grant.
Yes, I believe it was Peter. He was monstrous.
All right, so yeah, you're playing the San Francisco scene with Country Weather. You're doing Did you guys tour?
A little bit, we went to Vancouver, we went to Seattle. We never really got on the road. We did a few gigs in LA. Just the band sputtered out after about 5 or 6 years. What killed us was we saw the Cream.
Miller talks about that.
Yeah.
about being very depressed and going and hide for a while after he heard Clapton playing with Cream, and he couldn't believe that he was doing the things that he wanted to do in his head, you know. So
Yeah, oh, I know. Yeah, believe me. So Country Weather went from being a band that was songwriting oriented to being a band that became like an Olympic event. You know, who could play faster than the other guy? Anyway, I got tired of it and I quit. And as soon as I quit, instantly I realized I had developed a reputation in the Bay Area. And I started to get all kinds of studio gigs. I played on Link Wray's album. You
really?
know, Link Wray, man, what a trip.
Oh yeah, I know his daughter Beth, and
Really?
we do a tribute up in Canada called Rumble, which is actually a movie documentary. We also do a live version of that show. But yeah, Link is big time.
Wonderful guy. What a session, man. I mean, everybody was there. Jerry Garcia, you know, John McPhee. It just went on and on. I got featured on there. I got a nice review in Rolling Stone. Got a call from Van Morrison's manager. Asked if I would go on the road. His backup band was Soundhole, who later became Huey Lewis and the News.
Really? So before Clover?
Yeah, Van saw them at the Lion's Share in San Anselmo and loved them, but their guitar player just wasn't cutting it. Van and I got along very well. I was extremely surprised. He was a funny, witty guy, and I think he was happy that I didn't suck up to him. I treated him like a regular human being. I don't think he was used to that, and he and I had a great time.
You know, Malabar's talked a lot about how much he admired him and his whole personality was bigger than life. I mean, most stars are, you know, they just have that thing. I never had the pleasure, so I'm just learning from you guys about Van.
Yeah, amazing guy. I think he really wanted to be friends, but I was kind of starstruck and I didn't take advantage of that situation.
So did you record and tour with him?
I toured with him. I never recorded with him. He actually wanted me to give him guitar lessons. And I believe I sat down with him once and I said, you know what, Van, you're doing great with the 7 chords. You know, I think I'm just going to confuse you. So you just keep doing what you're doing. The road manager said, look, I know you and Van are buddies, but he's going to fire you eventually. And I said, yeah, I'm prepared for that. So he fired me, you know, in a nice way, just said, look, I'm going to try something different. And I said, okay, that's fine. So then I got a call from Jorma Kaukonen from Hot Tuna.
Right.
Did a great audition with him.
So now they wanted 2 guitar players? Is that what was going on?
They wanted 2 guitar players.
Yeah.
What they really needed was a second guitar player who sang. Did not realize that at the time. So after 9 months, I was let go in a fashion that I will describe in my autobiography. It wasn't pretty. That's about the time that I met Lonnie Turner. We were in a little, you know, sort of revolving door band called Terry and the Pirates. And that was with John Cipollina, the amazing guitarist from Quicksilver, who quickly became one of my best friends.
Played one of these.
Yes, he did. I asked him once, how would you describe your style, John? And he said, out of tune. And I said, okay, I can see that. He had one of those, but with a Bigsby. So you can imagine.
You just had that real fast.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. Lonnie and I got to know each other and started hanging out. I had a riff, had been hanging around forever. And I couldn't find anybody to put words to it. Well, Lonnie had these lyrics that kind of sounded like Dr. Seuss on acid. It just fit perfectly. I think you know the story behind it.
And I'm sure everybody else would like to hear that. When you get done telling that story, you can show everybody how you got your guitar tuned as well.
Right. Been happily confusing bar bands for the last 40 years, you know.
I had to learn it too, but now you guys have this song you're working on. Lonnie in the studio with Steve at that time?
They were just finishing Book of Dreams.
Ah, so they'd already done Fly Like an Eagle.
Yeah, they'd already done Fly Like an Eagle. They were done with Book of Dreams until Lonnie took out a cassette and said, oh, Steve, you might want to listen to this. And Steve looked at him as only Steve can and said, Lonnie, really? On the last day, you're giving me this? He took a listen to it And he said, "Where's the guitar player?" And
I'm sorry. I know that drill, but go ahead.
yeah, so I just happened to be in the same town they were recording, Sausalito, record plant. So yeah, I got a call from Steve. I almost thought it was a prank call because it'd been a while since we did the tape. He said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm in Sausalito. I'm about 10 minutes away." And he said, "Well, pack your stuff in your car and get down here right now. We're going to cut your song."
See, this is the genius of Steve Miller. It's not so much about just his guitar playing and his singing, which are unbelievable. It's his human resources gifting of being able to identify when something is a winner. And he wants that to be in his camp. And so he was just taking you and bringing you in.
That's what he did. The first thing he said when I saw him was, "Your opening guitar lick took the top of my head off." And he said, "I want this for my album. This is the missing part of this record." So I set my stuff up. Gary was kind of looking around in complete confusion. He thought the album was done. We cut the song with no lyrics. Gary, of course, just, made his way through it beautifully.
Play that opening riff.
There you go. So we cut it once, and Lonnie made a flub. Of course, Steve didn't like that. He said, "Lonnie, if you make a mistake, you never stop." We cut it again all the way through, played it twice. We edited them together with the white tape back in the old days where I don't know how those guys did it,
Like garden shears.
Exactly. So they put the 2 takes together, and that's what you hear on the radio. 2 takes. I was out of there in half an hour.
Wow. Little did you know, too, that you were actually going to be indoctrinated into the Steve Miller camp. When I got involved in Abracadabra, I mean, I was just a writer, studio bass player. I had no idea that I'd be getting in the band at some point. Just blown away when all that came down. You and I had very similar paths that way. So now you're done. You're probably going home thinking, well, that was fun. We'll see what happens with that.
Right. And I didn't cut the smartest of deals with Lonnie on it. So, but I've made more than enough money to make me comfortable off that song. So I got a call from Greg McCarthy, hardest working man in show business.
Yep, I love Greg.
Yep, Greg was the road manager. He said, "We're going to fly you down to LA because Jungle Love is going to be released as a single," which is the first I heard. I was going, "Oh,
really?" So that was the first single off of Book of Dreams.
I think so. I get flown down to LA. There's a whole film crew. They're shooting with 35 millimeter film. They made music videos to play before movies in Europe and Japan.
This is before MTV.
Yeah, before MTV and after cartoons. I played Jungle Love. I started to put my stuff away, and Steve said, No. I'm going, uh-oh.
You're being shanghaied.
Yeah, I said, "I want you to play on the other 2 songs." And I said, "Okay, what are they?" I said, "Well, Rockin' Me." And I said, "Well, I think I can do that. I've heard it a million times on the radio." And he said, "A song called Jet Airliner." I said, I've never heard that song, Steve." And he said, "Well, it's not rocket science." So I said, "What should I play?" He says, "Do what you want to do." So I'm like, God, talk about pressure.
Again, that's the human resources side of Steve. He wants to bring everything you have in. He doesn't want to just limit you to what he thinks you should do. He wants you to bring that and what you have.
Yep. So I went ahead and just jumped in with both feet. I played pretty well, although Jet Airliner ended up sounding like an Allman Brothers version of that song. We got done with the songs, and by that point, I was physically and mentally completely fried. A lot more went on that day than I had expected. I went back to the Chateau Marmont. There's a knock on my door, and there's Steve. I thought he was just going to, shake my hand and say thanks. He said, "How would you like to be in the band?" He said, I wanted to see how you would function under pressure. And he said, "You did beautifully." So he said, "You ready to go on the road?" And I was like, what possible answer is there except for yes? Rockin' Me just went #1 that day. So That was it for the next, I think it was about 4 years.
That leads us right up to this song, which is amazing. So why don't you explain a little bit?
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of show everybody. First of all, was this a slack tuning that you did on this song?
Yes, for any guitar geeks out there, this is the tuning. This is a Delta blues tuning. Some Robert Johnson stuff. And also some Keith Richards stuff. So we had 6-1. It's E, A, C sharp, E. So from the 5th string up, it's an A chord.
Yeah.
Originally, I just had the riff to the song, which is like a Keith Richards kind of thing. So you just have that Keith Richards. It's kind of a suspension.
Right.
And then that walk down, which confuses people for some reason, is just your 2nd finger at the 5th fret on the 4th string, 3rd finger at the 5th fret on the 2nd string, open 3rd string, and you get this. And
there it is, right.
Yeah.
Right, so. Right.
That's it. So it's just. So there you go. That's the basis of the song. There's some fills in there that would not be possible in regular tuning. For instance, the walk up.
See, I've never learned that part. That's cool.
That's it. Except you kind of use this as a pedal tone. Yeah. So that's basically the whole thing. But Lonnie and I were fooling around with it, and I came up with this intro, which is done using your pick and your finger. And you start with the open 6th and 4th string, and you pluck them like that.
Okay.
Then you go to the 2nd fret on the same 2 strings, and up to the 4th fret. Then you go to the open 5th and 3rd string, and then go to the 2nd fret and slide to the 4th fret on those same 2 strings. So it's like. That's it. You got it. This is what sold the song, was the slide up to the F sharp minor.
Right.
Yeah. I do a real high F sharp where I go up to the 9th fret, my 2nd finger at the 9th fret of the 5th string, my 3rd finger at the 9th fret of the 4th string. The 3rd string is open, 1st finger at the 8th fret of the 2nd string. That's it. That's it.
Wow. Wow. I had my own version of it.
Well, you know, it's a weird song, but I'm a weird guy. What can I tell you? It kind of gave the song this high melodic thing that went along with the singing.
If you're playing in these higher registers on the guitar, it's adding a timbre and a register that makes the song motivated on more of an excitement level. So you're not all down in these low fried 5th chords. You're kind of playing triads that makes everybody go, oh. When we do this live, next to the Joker, this is probably the one that gets the most response.
Well, you just made my day.
Well, I mean, it's just the way it's been.
It's a happy song, man. I took enough music to think about these things. I said, we're going to the chorus, it needs to be happier.
Yeah.
So that's why I went up to those high chords.
I used to just do it with my finger. Like that.
Whatever works, you know?
Because I wasn't using a slide. I was playing just regular guitar with this weird tuning of yours. Play the whole piece now with me not playing. I want just people just to hear you doing it.
Okay, great. And then, of course, the bridge goes. That's Jungle Love. That's what got me in the band.
Oh, man, that's so great. And I know that the viewers are just going to love getting all that information. Okay, well, now go ahead and move your laptop back up so you can see you again.
There we go. Hi. My collection of horror movie posters in the back.
Yeah, no, I love that. I know you're a horror movie guy.
No, dude. Yeah, it's an expensive hobby, but
So then you're invited to do the band and you guys go on tour. And when you go on tour, you just don't play like these little venues. You guys are blowing up. So go ahead and tell us about that experience.
I went from playing toilets in and around Marin County in San Francisco to playing 10,000 seat hockey arenas. The biggest show we played was opening for Fleetwood Mac at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. 100,000 people. And you know what? With a show like that, I look out at all those people and I get more nervous playing for 5 people than I do for 100,000 because it's like playing to a carpet. But what a rush. So yeah, we played nothing but ginormous stadiums. I still have yet to see the concert from '77, which I'm very much looking forward to.
So right now, Steve Miller is putting out a video of you guys doing that tour that he found in his warehouse and multi-track recording of it and was able to actually mix the show and make it sound really nice. That is actually being released as we speak right now. So people can actually stream it, buy it, whatever they want to do.
Please do.
And your puss is all over the screen.
I love it, man. Young and handsome. I don't know what happened, but my time with Steve was absolutely wonderful. You know, Steve has his quirks, but he's a really good person at heart. I had a hand injury that happened because I was being stupid. Almost cut my right hand off. I was in the hospital thinking about how this was it. My career was over. Steve had a tour coming up. I figured, well, every guitar player in San Francisco is chomping at the bit and just drooling to get my gig, which they were, incidentally. Steve came to the hospital. He said, don't worry, I'm going to pay for everything. He said, you know, you're going to pay me back, but I'm going to pay for everything. So you don't have to worry about anything but getting better.
Wow.
He said, I've had my share of not too smart incidents in my life. So I went home. I was, told not to move that hand. So I sat in bed for a month, and Steve brought the whole band over to my house. He said, we're canceling the tour. We're not going to go out without you. It was such a beautiful, generous gesture on his part. And the band, they all just told me, look, don't worry, you're our brother. The only guy who gave me a little bit of a nudge was Norton Buffalo.
It was a knucklehead.
He was a knucklehead, and he was the last guy out of the room. And he said, by the way, man, it's too bad about this because I had you up as the slide guitarist in the band for the movie The Rose. He said, you were in like Flint, but gee, I guess that's not going to happen now, huh? Norton could get away with something like that.
He could get away with all kinds of. He was the most unfireable person I've ever met in my life.
Oh,
Fired. You couldn't fire him.
I heard him say stuff to Steve that just made my jaw drop. What happened was I was back in the studio 2 months to the day after I almost cut my hand off. I used to take thumb picks, cut them off, and then crazy glue a flat pick to it because I had no feeling in my right hand whatsoever. My muscles knew what to do, but I couldn't feel it. Now they have these things called, and I'm going to give this guy a plug, they're called slick picks.
Yep, I've seen those.
Yeah, they're wonderful. So all of a sudden I can play with my finger and my pick.
So you and I are the brothers of the glass. I actually cut my left hand, my fretting hand with a glass. I had a similar injury of yours at one point in my life. That to this day, I don't have any feeling in this pinky on the tip. But I did go back to Cedars and they fixed me up and I was able to recover too. So I know what you went through. I'm also a brother of what Steve was talking about, having injuries because he fell off stage once and I've fallen off stage. So I share that with him and I share the cut with you. So I totally can relate. And I know exactly the psychological things you were going through, the physical challenges you were going through, and everything that you had to face at that point in your life. So I totally get it. You, like a phoenix, you rose out of it. So at this point, is Steve Miller recording or doing anything at that time, or is he kind of taking a break? Or
he was taking a break. He just he was tired of touring, and I think he was kind of getting his second wind. That's when I went to the famous Malibu Garage studio.
Yeah.
And you and I and a couple of other people, John Massaro, Lonnie Turner, I think Byron came down, and we cut a bunch of tracks just for the sheer joy of cutting tracks.
Yep. And he got Mick Kozowski to help him with the studio. He had a nice little Soundcraft board. He had the TIAC 80-8 half-inch machine with the DBX. I mean, his studio sounded pretty pro. And he and I were in a band at that time called Gerard McMahon and Kid Lightning out of a studio called Fidelity Recorders in the Valley. And that's how I met Gary, was in that band. And that's how I got brought into the garage with you guys.
I remember this hotshot guitar player / bass player. And I wasn't sure if I liked you at first, man. You were a little too good. Since then, obviously, we've become very good friends.
This is prior to Abracadabra.
It was indeed, yes. That happened, and the recordings in Gary's garage happened that ended up being most of Abracadabra. I got a call from Greg Kinn. He had decided to bring in a different guitar player. He's going to replace Dave Carpenter, who had been with him since the beginning, and it was a great guy and a wonderful guitar player, but things just weren't working out for some reason. I came into the band. They made me an equal member right out of the gate, which is very unusual. The first song that we cut in the studio was called Jeopardy.
I remember it well.
Yep. It became a #2 hit, 2 of the big music magazines, and it became a #1 hit in Cashbox. So it did very, very well, and it was one of the top MTV videos.
It was kind of right at the tail end of disco, if I'm not mistaken. And it had a little bit of that element in it. It was able to cross over out of that and then still bring rock and roll back into the forefront, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it made it into, I think, the top 10 on the R&B charts, too. I remember they used my guitar solo, like the Friday Night Fights. I called my dad and I said, "You watching the fights?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You just heard me play." And that impressed him. That really impressed the hell out of him. So we toured incessantly for 4 years.
You worked the hell out of that single, man.
Oh, it just went on and on and on and on. Saturday Night Live, hosted by Howard Cosell. What a trip that guy was. He walked into our dressing room, said, "Are you guys comedians?" And we said, "No, we're musicians." He said, "I'm hanging with you. I'm sick of all these people trying to be funny." I've had the most incredible life you can imagine. Unfortunately, right at the end of the Greg Kihn thing, I discovered chemicals. The issue was a young lady who came up and offered me something that was a calmative that has since become very popular with the young people. And I was in a kind of a down mood. So I said, "Yeah, I'll try some." And that was the beginning of a very, very, very bad period in my life where I ended up basically homeless for a while. I was living out of my car, so I was in the the upper middle class of the homeless people. Then I remarried actually. I had my middle-age crisis wife. She was modeling lingerie, and so you can imagine the rest. I moved to San Diego, just hated it. I hated it down here. I was promised a great gig with a band, which of course turned out to be absolute nonsense. And we ended up playing a series of country western bars that looked like the bar scene in the Blues Brothers. All that was missing was the chicken wire. All I wanted to do was go back to the Bay Area. And then I met this lovely, lovely woman you see right here. And that's the day I married her.
Wow.
Bought that wedding dress from Fredericks of Hollywood. So that convinced me to stay here. She basically changed my entire life. Cleaned up, stopped smoking, stopped drinking, stopped doing all that other stuff, went in for treatment, and now I am a licensed facilitator for Smart Recovery, which is an alternative to the 12-step thing. There's some people that just can't hang with the spiritual thing, that believe that getting clean is your responsibility. I'm one of those people. I do a meeting every week and it keeps me centered.
At one point in my life, I went through something similar to you. And the only person I could ever find that was really, really good counselor was not a psychologist. It was a 12-step counselor who had been a musician, a writer, and he totally understood more than anybody else. And so I ended up getting more work done with him than anybody. And he was a former addict that became a counselor.
That's a gift. Yeah, when I was in rehab, I always had the feeling that I wasn't a very good guitar player.
There's a point where I was kind of that way too. After a while, you just got to get comfortable in your own skin, as you know.
Yeah,
You can't compare yourself to Wes Montgomery because Wes Montgomery was from another planet.
as was Eddie Van Halen and a lot of other people. Instead of being inspired by them, I became intimidated by them, and that's no way to live your life. And this counselor said, "I never want you to say that you are a substandard guitarist again. You have a gift. I've heard it. I love your music. So do not insult me by saying that you don't like what you do, because I love it. And so do a lot of other people." It's a life-changing moment.
Do not insult me is heavy, man, because you kind of like all of a sudden realize you're hurting people around. You're hurting their feelings. And that was what I had to go to too. I mean, my counselor said, "You're dangerous." He goes, "You talk about peace and love, being a hippie and all that stuff." He goes, "You might as well just take a revolver, you put one bullet in it and spin it and go to your home and put it to your kid's head and see how that turns out. Because you're dangerous." I couldn't believe that I was being told I was dangerous.
Wow, that's a good counselor.
He knew, man. He knew. And then what you just said is amazing. Don't insult me. Coming from another person. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, my musical taste is that you're great, Greg. If you try to tell me you're substandard, you're insulting my intelligence.
there you go.
Okay, so wow. So you had quite a journey. And of course, your lovely wife I've met, she's really, really great. Your wife's name, what is her
Oh,
name?
Jerry as in Geraldine.
She's fantastic. And behind every pretty good guitar player is a really great. So at this point, you're in San Diego, and then I show up on the USS Kitty Hawk out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and there you are. You're on the boat with me, and I'm up there with Stills, and we're playing all this stuff. Got Dallas Taylor on drums and Jeff Daniels on keyboards, and I'm playing the bass. And here's you with your band, and we're playing for the military.
That was quite a day, man. You may edit this out, but I have a lot of respect for Steve Stills musically. I was kind of watching him, and I didn't quite know what to think of him. He was acting a little bit odd.
You think?
Yeah, it takes one to know one. So his roadie had his pre-war Martin in his hand, and he was testing a microphone.
I remember this.
And he got electrocuted to the point where he got thrown back about 5 feet onto his back, out.
As I found out what happened, one of the military naval guys had accidentally hooked up our AC to the 220 poles, and there was 220 was coming through that microphone stand, not 110. Go ahead.
Oh my God. So Steve ran over to the guy who's still laying there, kind of.
He's like smoking.
Yeah, literally, he was smoking. And Steve runs over and looks down and says, "Is my guitar okay?" And I remember turning to you and saying, "Kenny, forgive me, but I was going to lay back and be polite tonight. That's not the way it's going to be anymore after you."
That was just an incredible gig. We actually rehearsed at his house, which is that house he rented from Barbra Streisand up on Wonderland Park, looking over the Hollywood. And that was an interesting experience in itself, telling that Jimi Hendrix comes into his body once in a while, and when it happens, it's kind of like a surprise, but he just lets it go and then lets it happen. And that leads us up to that thing. And then you kind of went back into the San Diego music scene. You sent me some of your CDs that you did the last couple of years. They were great. The one with the Griffon dragon on it. You really just had a wonderful life. And then, of course, now when we play in the San Diego area, and you come to the show, I always try to get you up on stage to play this doggone song we were working on today, because you're the only one who knows how to play it.
Well, the problem is you guys start with it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, we didn't used to, but we have been doing that a lot lately. But listen, man, anything else you want to tell the young musicians out there? Sage advice from the old guru from the Bay Area?
Yes, don't follow trends. The music business is a complete puzzlement to me, but there is good music out there if you look for it. So find your audience on the internet. They're out there. They're waiting to hear you if you're good. Get yourself out there and practice. Learn your instrument. Don't just learn a bunch of power chords. Learn how the guitar works. I practice every day still, at least an hour, usually 3 to 4 hours, because I love it. This is a bitch. It is addicting. It gives up its secrets unwillingly. You have to pry the secrets of the guitar out of it. That's why I use the different tunings, and that's why I do all kinds of different things. Now I'm rehearsing my new band, Greg Douglas and the Sidewinders. I'm still in it with both feet.
So where can people find that? Is there a website?
It's gregdouglasguitar.com.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for doing this. You've just been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your life experience, and thank you for Jungle Love. I mean, it's become a part of American history now, so I hail you.
Kenny, thank you for thinking about me and including me in this series. I'm in here with some very heavy hitters, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Also proud to be your friend.
The creature from the Black Lagoon has stolen my heart. Now he wants my head. That was a song that Gary Malaber told me about. It was actually a song.
And see where Gary would know about that.
Because
yes.
You are a sci-fi nut and a thriller nut, and I know that. And that's another part of you with all the posters in the back that you and I share together. We all grew up with The Creature. So with that being said, let's let The Creature go back into the lagoon. The next time around, hopefully we'll be playing San Diego shortly, and we'll have you and your lovely wife again in the green room for free guacamole and beer.
It's just fun going and hanging with you, saying hi to Steve, and it's a good day to be alive. Well, thank you.
See you on the next one.
All right, you bet. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this incredible episode with Mr. Greg Douglas. What a great musician, and thank you for sharing your journey. Young musicians coming up, you need to pay attention to his story, because be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it, you know what I mean? I mean, hit record and stardom and travel the world. Sometimes you just have to learn from all those bumps in the road, and Greg came out unscathed, and he's doing great, and thank you so much for joining me, brother. Also, if any of you would like to take guitar lessons from me on my website, fretfrenz.com, just go to fretfrenz.com, and you can have a free trial there and see if you like what you see. I'm running some specials right now as I'm getting it off the ground, so check it out. There's a free trial as well. And if you'd like private lessons, just get in touch with me with my website, kennyleelewis.com. And you can just send me a message there if you'd like to do some Skype or Zoom lessons. We dedicate this whole show to all of the musicians that have come in and out of the Steve Miller Band over the last 50 years, those that have passed on and those that are still alive. What an incredible piece of American history, and I'm so honored to be a part of this. So this was a very special episode for me. So, without further ado, let's go into the next one with Mr. Jack Sonny from Dire Straits. We're going to do that one next. That's going to be fantastic. We'll see you on the next time around, and stay tuned always.